Ozymandias is Percy Bysshe Shelley's defining work, published in 1818. I will use this poem to show how one explicates a poem and shows how the author creates meaning. The first step in explicating and understanding a poem is reading it through, sometimes multiple times. Let's read it through once. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear, My name is Ozymandias, King of kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away." So, looking at this poem, the author uses many different devices to create meaning and to share his message. First, to recognize the type of poem, we can count the number of lines and look at how the poem is set up. This poem contains 14 lines and is written in a structure known as a sonnet. A sonnet. This poem also rhymes. Land, sand, red, fed, decay, away. And the rhyme scheme of this poem can be analyzed using letters. So, using letters, we can show that the first line we're going to call A. And as the second line ends in a word that does not rhyme, we'll call it B. Looking at the third line, however, the word sand rhymes with the word land. And as these two lines rhyme, the first and the third, we can label this A. Continuing, we can dissect the rhyme scheme of the entire poem, which will be shown here. For each new rhyming word that does not match any of the ones previously, a new letter is used. These letters show the rhyme scheme that is used in Shelley's poem Ozymandias. The next step in understanding a poem's meaning is to look at it completely literally, to use the author's figurative language in a literal way. So literally, we can go line by line and understand what's happening in this poem. The narrator met a traveler from an antique land. The traveler told us a story. In the story, he told us, two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. So from this, we understand that there were two legs of stone in the desert, and this statue was dilapidated. The statue did not have a torso. It had no trunk, which is what they refer to as a torso, and near it is a shattered visage, or a head, of the statue. The statue's head is described literally, and the sculptor, his message is assumed. Literally, we can also see that a message was written upon the pedestal, the message here. Nothing else remains in the desert, and the lone and level sands stretch far away. So literally, what we see here is that there is a statue with a message on it, and nothing else. And this is all told to us by a traveler. Now, why is there a traveler? Why doesn't Shelley use this poem to talk about the experience from the first person? Why does the narrator say he met a traveler who tells us the story? And this is a device that Shelley uses in order to make the poem seem more distant. These observations are not his. These observations are not the narrator's. These observations are ones made by a traveler that the narrator is then sharing with the reader, us. Imagery is also used in this poem. Vast and trunkless legs of stone shows the size of this statue, especially when it was still full. Half sunk, a shattered visage lies, conjures images of an abandoned face of stone lying in sand. The next few lines show the clear scorn that was expressed on the face lying in the sand. And finally, at the end of the poem, round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sand stretched far away, it is clear to the reader that the desert is unimportant and unimpressive beyond this statue. This is the imagery that Shelley uses to share the traveler's story. Finally, we must look at the central message of this poem. The central message of this poem is ironic. It shares the absurdity of Ozymandias' declaration. So, this traveler found this statue, who we can presume is of Ozymandias. Ozymandias' character is completely unknown to the reader of this poem, besides what is told by the description of the visage, which was the imagery we talked about previously. The message is directly linked to the irony. The message again is, "My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair." This message is clearly an attempt to intimidate any travelers, to show the greatness of Ozymandias' achievements, and to make the traveler feel small in comparison. Centuries after Ozymandias' life and his achievements, nothing else remains. There is a statue in the desert that is not even whole. There is a visage with scornful, unhappy expressions, and there is a desert that reaches far away, bare and empty. Looking around the statue, the traveler sees nothing else. All he sees is a bare, empty desert where we can imagine or assume that once Ozymandias' kingdom was, where once Ozymandias' great works that he speaks of in his message existed, but they no longer do. This poem is ironic. It shows that the message of intimidation and of bragging that Ozymandias shares is not one that lasted and is completely unimportant in the current day. Furthermore, the absurdity of individual greatness is something that Shelley analyzes. Shelley uses the poem Ozymandias to show that the achievements of men are not only insignificant, but that they are completely and utterly temporary, that time erases all great achievements, that Ozymandias' great kingdom, though we can assume it was once great, has turned into an empty desert without a single mark of the great and terrible works he speaks of. This poem is a comment on the temporary human condition, on our small and not lasting influence on the world, and on the way that a traveler, years from now, can look on our works and see very little of what was once there.